When I heard of some of the initial facts and findings of this situation, it didn't quite fit together, and I felt at least that something wasn't right. I thought surely this will make sense as we will get to the bottom of the investigation. The problem is a proper investigation into the series of events doesn't seem to be taking place to me, and I think many Americans feel the same way. Now, generally, I'm not one to read prepared statements, but the gravity and seriousness of what we are here to discuss necessitates it so that I make sure I'm accurate in recounting the details. I'd like to focus my attention on the storage and transfer of data by Mr. Awan and the unattended laptop found by Capitol Police. Here's what we know. The House Office of Inspector General tracked the Awan's network usage and found that a massive amount of data was flowing from the networks. Over 5,700 logins by the 5 Awan associates were discovered on a single server within the House. The server of the Democratic Caucus chairman, then Rep. Xavier Becerra of California, 5,400 appear unauthorized. All right, he is now the Attorney General of California. According to the reports, the Becerra server was actually housing the entirety of a clear violation, entirety of the servers of all the member offices that employed Imran or his associates, all of it, the entirety. It's a clear violation of House policy. This means that up to 40 or more members of Congress had all of their data moved out of their office server or out of their cloud storage system and onto the Becerra server without their knowledge or consent. The House OIG reported their findings to the Speaker's office, Democratic leadership, and the House Administration Committee, as well as the House Sergeant-at-Arms and Capitol Police in late September and early October of 2016, and Capitol Police began a criminal investigation into Imran Awan and his associates at that time. Capitol Police determined that the image they required Imran to provide was falsified, likely with deliberate attempt to conceal the activities that they knew were against House policy and the law. These facts, standing alone, indicate a substantial security threat at the least, but the events don't end there. A laptop was recovered in a phone booth in the Rayburn office building after midnight on April 6, 2017. According to Capitol Police report, reviewing the bag recovered in that phone booth contained the following items. Number one, a Pakistani ID card with the name Mohammed Ashraf Awan. Number two, a copy, not the original, of a driver's license with the name Imran Awan. Number three, a copy, front and back, of his Congressional ID. Number four, an Apple laptop with the home screen initials Rep. DWS. Number five, composition notebooks with the notes handwritten saying attorney-client privilege, that's in quotes, and possibly discussing case details below. Number six, loose letters addressed to the U.S. Attorney of D.C., the District of Columbia, discussing the apparent owner of the bag being investigated. The bag was recovered after Imran was banned from accessing the House IT network, but not before he was ultimately fired from Rep. Wasserman Shultz. Capitol Police banned Imran Awan and his associates from the House network on February 2nd, 2017. Just remember when the investigation started. Wasserman Shultz then fired Awan on July 25th after learning about his arrest, so 6 months later. Despite the threat of consequences to the police chief if a member equipment was not returned, the police continued their investigation of the computer. Representative Wasserman Shultz has hired an attorney to represent her interests in the matter. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any prosecutorial experience. I don't have any expertise in information technology, and I'm not going to claim any specialized investigative journalist skills, but I have been fortunate enough to be placed in front of individuals that do have particularized knowledge in these areas to ask questions that need to be answered. I hope today sheds light onto enough of what we know thus far, full well knowing that there is much more to be uncovered, to initiate a true investigation into whether U.S. taxpayer money was misspent, access to sensitive information was misused and or stolen, if these individuals are going to be held accountable for what happened, and if procedures have been instituted to prevent a situation like this from ever happening again.
There's this basic issue of who's watching the store. Hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars have gone missing through equipment. People, when they communicate with their House members, often communicate the most private information, as sensitive as anything the IRS has or anything that your health doctor, your health care provider has. If you've got a problem with your Social Security or your VA benefits, you provide your Social Security information, you provide other sensitive personal data and confidential health data and data about your situation, and that material could be on your members' servers. All that could have been breached here. So not only is the confidentiality of the House proceedings at issue here, but the privacy interest of who knows how many Americans have been breached as a result of this lackadaisical attitude. And secondly, we've got the issue of whether or not the process for accountability here is working. I shouldn't say secondly, and maybe seventhly. Where are the committees? Where's the House Administration Committee? I'm pleased that the leadership of both parties, when they were briefed by the House Office of Inspector General, said we got to bring the FBI in. But does that mean you shut down your investigation? You don't hold members to account who, when warned about potential criminal activity, continue to place these staffers, or at least one staffer in the case of Debbie Wasserman Shultz, in a position where they might be able to continue criminal activity and still be able to harm the taxpayer and other House members and House staffers? This is a mighty serious issue. And I tell you, I don't know whether the alleged DNC hacks and some of the hacks we've seen recently are tied to the Pakistani family crime ring that we have found here in the House. But to the extent Mr. Mueller is doing a competent job, it seems to me he'll want to at least ask some questions to see if there's an intersection between the hacks of Democratic officials, including Debbie Wasserman Shultz, and this and the Awan family crime ring.
What would be the rationale for a member of Congress paying a 20-year-old $160,000 to do nothing? I mean, has anyone offered an explanation in any of your investigations as to why someone would be able to do that? Were there other 20-year-olds making that kind of money in the House who had no skills to do anything? I mean, you're talking about, at a minimum, hundreds of thousands of dollars that were just frittered away. And yes, I know people sometimes are careless, but to me, that would have been done for a reason. Somebody would have done it for a reason. My concern is, I mean, you know, the wife goes, she's got 14 grand in cash, she's allowed to leave the country. You know, a lot of my constituents, I mean, if they have an administrative violation, they'll have OSHA sweep in, all these agencies. It's just weird that she would be allowed to go. And I'm just concerned that, you know, we have a Justice Department, FBI, we have certain laws, but the ferocity of which those laws are enforced has just not been uniform lately. I mean, you know, you look at the Mueller investigation, picking Manafort's lock in the middle of the night, drawing guns on him and his wife for some white-collar infraction 3-4 years ago. I mean, that's like scorching the earth, but yet with Hillary, she was exonerated 2 months before, Comey exonerated her 2 months before she was brought in for questioning. And my fear on this case is that the ferocity will not be where it needs to be.
On July 22nd, WikiLeaks published over 44,000 DNC emails. In 2 email chains, it is revealed that Imran Awan knew Ms. Wasserman Shultz's username and password. Specifically, in an exchange on May 4th of 2016, Garrett Bonsky of the DNC asked for Ms. Wasserman Shultz's username and password. And it is revealed in that email that Mr. Awan knew the username and password, which is certainly automatically, we all know that's a violation of policy. But do we know for certain if the password that the DNC office of the chair deputy director, Garrett Bonsky, was for the House account or for her DNC account? Do we know that?
I believe that was for her personal iPad, which I would assume would have the DNC emails for
personal
her.
As opposed to official. Official would be the conference, the caucus, the House of Representatives. Personal would be personal / or DNC political.
It was an iPad that she used as her primary device. I don't know what account she had hooked into it.
So if it's not if it is not official, then it is not a violation of House policy, right? If it's, yes, sir, go ahead.
I can interject that as a member of Congress, you are permitted to receive your official communication on a campaign device. So if it was a device that was paid for by the campaign, it is quite possible that her official emails, calendar, and things like that were on the device.
But is it still a violation of policy for the username and password to be circulated among other individuals?
I would assume yes.
Okay. Is it reasonable then to assume that he had full access, if he had access to her username and password, that he had full access to all of her emails?
Absolutely.
Let me finish up here, Louie.
sure.
If he had full access to all of those emails in the account, and including the DNC stuff, is it reasonable to assume, since he moved all the other stuff off-site, right? He literally moved all the other stuff off-site onto the shadow server, the Xavier Becerra server. Is it safe to assume that he could have, if he wanted to, moved all the DNC data off-site as well?
I don't know about his access to the DNC, but
Anything on that machine?
correct.
On that device, right? Now, he was banned, the investigation started on July of 2016. He was banned from House IT on February of 2017. Representative Wasserman Shultz didn't relieve him of his duties here until July 25th of 2017. Is there any reason anybody can think of, knowing all that information, she would, and the sensitivity of that, what are the potential reasons why she would have kept him on, knowing all those things were occurring?
I can't think of a reasonable one.
Anybody else?
Well, you could think of corrupt reasons. You could think of non-corrupt reasons.
Well, why don't you give me any of the reasons you can think of?
That she fears, in terms of the corruption issue, embarrassment for having employed this person, and firing him would be an admission that she should have exercised better oversight. Concern that there was information about her as a result of her access to her systems and her colleagues' systems that would be embarrassing, and that therefore he had leverage over her. The non-corruptive reasons, although troubling, would be what she said, that she had an ideological concern, that she thought he was being targeted because of his Muslim beliefs, and therefore she was going to put the public at risk to make a political point. There are corrupt and non-corrupt reasons. I don't think any of them are sufficient or persuasive to keep him employed.
I think we've got a case here perhaps of Islamophobia for sure, a fear to take them on rather than any kind of prejudice. The evidence is so heavy in all of this. And I haven't heard anybody publicly say that it could have been this, that it could have been a sophisticated network that was set up to draw as much money as possible from the U.S. taxpayers and ship it over to people that are enemies to our existence perhaps. But I'd tie another piece of this then, and that is, if they had access to at least privileged information, if not classified information, I'm not convinced they didn't have access to classified information. We've watched the Hillary investigation far enough to know that the first answer is not the one that we should just accept blindly. But if they had access to privileged, perhaps classified, and this is information that was transferred through campaign computers, then connected with the chair of the DNC, then we can presume that a lot of that information was available to them. Now, this hacking of the DNC that reaches over to allegedly the Russians, but with WikiLeaks coming back with a bit of a different answer, and I compliment also Louie Gohmert and Dana Rohrabacher for looking into that particular question. But is it possible that this network that's here could have been connected to those incidents of the DNC hacking and perhaps the WikiLeaks information in a way other than just a random email that popped up?
I think that there is enough evidence of red flags here that that's something that should be explored. I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of them have interesting things to say, and a lot of them have not been interviewed by the FBI. So there's reason to believe that the FBI is not talking to people that they should be, even basic people who could have knowledge of things like what you're talking about.
So, I mean, this at least cries out for a serious investigation when you got people who have money problems hanging out with and getting a loan from someone who is known to hang out with Hezbollah, and they have access to the server for dozens and dozens of Democrat elected officials in the United States Congress. I don't know, but that's a movie right there, I think, right? That's a movie. So, and yet we're having 6 guys show up to talk with 3 guys who've been following this story, and that's all the House is, to Mr. Fitton's point. Where in the heck is the House investigation? That's what I want to know.
Imran Awan spends months out of every year in Pakistan. Abid was
He
supposedly...
spent at least 1 month a year in Pakistan.
He spent more like, I've seen records indicating that he spent like 3 to even more months per year in Pakistan.
Some years he would spend more than 3 months in
He
Pakistan.
also, I have seen emails where he indicated that he was doing his job remotely from Pakistan.
So he had access and doing the job of providing security for House members from Pakistan? Seriously?
That's what he said.
I had not seen that anywhere. I was not aware of that. But Imran Awan himself said he was helping with, well, he was doing the job for which he was being paid. What amount was he being paid annually?
Over $160,000.
Over $160,000 annually, and some years more than 3 months doing it from Pakistan. That is just staggering.